In any war that takes place, there is not just one war, but war being waged on several fronts. One of the wars that is constantly waged against Muslims is the war in the media. And we can see a clear example of this in the manner in which the Israeli barbaric assault on Gaza has been covered. One of the constant refrains of this media war has been something that has been repeated by politicians as well as the media, that Israel has the right to defend itself against Hamas rockets. There is never, ever, or seldom any mention of the fact that the people of Gaza, and in fact the people of Palestine, have been under occupation for decades, that Gaza has been under Israeli attack for at least 2 years, constant attacks in which hundreds of people have been killed, and that Palestinian children and Palestinian women have equally the right to be safe from Israeli assaults and barbaric attacks. And as we have witnessed in the recent assault on Gaza that was launched on December the 27th, that more than 1,000 Palestinians have been butchered, thousands of them have been injured, their homes, their flats, their apartments, their buildings, their schools, hospitals have been destroyed, all under the name or under the pretext of Israel has the right to defend itself. Although we can see that Hamas had offered a ceasefire to the Israelis before that ceasefire expired on December the 18th, the Israelis were simply not interested in a ceasefire. They wanted to crush Hamas, and therefore they continued, or they launched their murderous assault on Gaza. There are other buzzwords that we find in the media portrayal of what has been happening in Gaza. For instance, Israel always retaliates, whereas the Palestinians provoke. Palestinians die when they are butchered by the Israelis, but Israelis are killed. So Palestinians just automatically die as if they just die a natural death. And we see they're talking about fighting in Gaza. In fact, there is no fighting in Gaza. There is just one side, Israel, that has invaded Gaza. Now Israel is in another people's territory, not in its own. And Israel is using Apache helicopters, F-16 planes, Merkava tanks, long-range missiles, phosphorus bombs, and all kinds of other lethal weapons. What do the Palestinians have? Crude, homemade rockets. And Israel wants to prevent these also from reaching Hamas. Why is that? In fact, what Israel wants to do is to make sure that the Palestinians are totally at its mercy. And the Western media continues to talk about Israel's right to defend itself, but not the Palestinians' right to defend themselves. So Palestinian mosques, hospitals, schools, homes, apartment buildings are all considered as Hamas infrastructure. Therefore, there is justification to destroy them, or there is a pretext made to destroy these infrastructures. And therefore, the media absolves Israel of its responsibility under international law and under international humanitarian law. Whereas when Palestinians react to these barbaric attacks, then they are supposed to be provoking the Israelis, that they are supposed to be militants, that they are supposed to be terrorists, and therefore attacks on them are justified. When Israel murders children in schools that Israel itself said that the Palestinians should move to, even UN-run schools, then the excuse is that the Israelis advance are immediately that, well, Hamas was firing rockets from there. And the Western media simply parrots these nonsensical allegations, even when the United Nations' own spokespersons reject these allegations quite categorically, that no such rockets were fired. So when that lie is exposed, then the Israelis simply parrot another lie and say, well, it was a mistake. And the Western media simply parrots that nonsense and say, well, it was a mistake, and therefore we just move on from there. So the media in this instance is complicit, and in fact has always been complicit in the crimes that Israel perpetrates against innocent people. And that the same goes for Western leaders. In fact, we found only recently that at the United Nations Human Rights Council, a council that consists of 47 members, while most of the European countries abstained, Canada was the only country that voted against a resolution condemning Israel's violation of human rights in the Gaza Strip. That shows how subservient these Western countries are to Israeli interests and do not care for the rights of the Palestinian people. It is this kind of hypocrisy by Western leaders as well as Western media that really infuriates people and makes them feel that they have to take recourse to their own self-defense, that they must fight with whatever means at their disposal so that they can restore themselves and their people to a life of dignity and honor and freedom from occupation. In fact, occupation itself is a great crime, but that is something that the Western media never talks about. And it is for this reason that I think people of conscience must stand up and realize that whenever such crimes are being perpetrated, that they would not go unpunished or unanswered.